Joseph Fiennes, you're back in season 2 of The Handmaid's Tale, which premieres April 25th on Hulu. After the recognition the show received for the first season, how did it feel returning to set for season 2?
Well, incredibly grateful because I've never been in a series which has gone beyond the first year. So I was very grateful for that. But I think fundamentally, a sense of pressure that we continue to, through a dystopian lens, if you like, throw a mirror up to what's going on in our time, age, and society. And Margaret Atwood really clearly, with the book, kicked off that conversation. Season 1, we got lucky with the political zeitgeist, if you like, but there were components of the book and narratives in season 1 which were undeniably kind of drew parallels to certain worlds and administrations, if you like, and complexities and movements. And so I think there's a sense of a good pressure, if you like, but nevertheless a pressure of honoring that, keeping it entertaining, but also being cognizant of the fact that this is sensitive, complex, and important material.
And season 1 of The Handmaid's Tale covered that Margaret Atwood novel. So now season 2 is going off book to explore the world more deeply. Were you nervous to start reading those new scripts for season 2, knowing that the show was going to be going in new directions that we hadn't seen in Gilead before?
I was very excited to take a look because it's kind of like discovering a Shakespeare play that no one's heard or seen before, and so you don't get people on the front row going, "Oh, I know how this ends." So there's a wonderful freedom that the writers have given themselves and us, but also they've kept an authenticity. They've kept true to the voice and narrative of the book in season 1. And it's what I would call a sort of a light departure. I mean, we still go to places that are mentioned in the book and season 1 in which we've explored, but we also step outside those realms into places that are mentioned in the book, such as the colonies. So it's not a kind of an abrupt departure. It's still very authentic. But what I love about season 2 is that it's twice as creepy, twice as dark and complex, and there's a greater urgency for resistance. And that's what really permeates season 2. It's all about birth and baby and motherhood and huge resistance by strong women.
And you mentioned the political climate in the real world that coincided with kind of the first season. That was being shot during the presidential election campaign, and now season 2 was shot with suddenly Donald Trump already in office. What was it like in season 2? Like, was there a different feeling in the scripts or on the set, feeling like maybe the real world in certain ways felt like it's maybe catching up to Gilead?
I mean, there is a sense of that, but I think we've kind of kept true to the narrative that has been launched. And there will be parallels this season with what's going on right now. And I think about Fred in that regard. I think about, the world of predators and how movements have been brought about by powerful women, bringing those predators to account. And I think about Fred and his predatory kind of predilections, if you like, towards Offred, and what that conversation is important to me about the male psyche and the breakdown and where does it come from and what are the root causes. I think there's a fascinating thing in season 2 which opens up a bit in terms of the sort of male hierarchy and vis-a-vis Fred at work and how his sort of masculinity is challenged to a degree, and when he steps back into the household, the people who get it in the neck because if he's feeling frail towards his sense of masculinity are the women in the household. So there's a fascinating conversation about sort of male dominance and the need for it to feel vocal and powerful, and why it feels that need, and where does it feel weak in terms of having to promote and assert itself. So I found those sort of parallels, subtle parallels, fascinating to work with.
And what's interesting about Fred is that while he does assert himself in his household in a way that he can't necessarily, as in with the same degree of power in his male hierarchy, he also seems to respond well when Offred, is a little defiant, a little rebellious. It seems to, as opposed to when she's very submissive, docile, she's trying to behave. What do you think appeals to him about a slightly more getting more pushback from the Handmaid?
Well, it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? And this is what I've loved discovering in season 2 is Fred loves strong, powerful women. And at the same time, juxtaposed to that is the sense of having to dominate it and shut it down when it becomes too prominent, or when it might take away his sense of male control. And so there's this dance between both Serena and Offred and himself in terms of being switched on, wanting to engage with a powerful woman, but at the same time feeling threatened by her voice. And that's what enriches the scenes and gives them a kind of level of tension. But you're right in terms of there's something about that powerful female dynamic that he is attracted to and both repelled by.
And Waterford, in his household, in his work, he has done and continues to do some pretty unconscionable things. Of course, was it any harder to find sympathy for him as an actor this season, or is it easier since you've already had one season before this to kind of get under his skin and understand him?
Well, season 2 was great because of season 1 in terms of understanding and getting under the skin. It just it didn't need the amount of work and sort of backstory invention as season 1. So it really just launched itself. And I really enjoyed that being a process kind of in the moment, if you like, particularly with Offred. There's some scenes where they just melded and flew together because of all the preparatory work of season 1. And I've really enjoyed that.
Gilead is a society based in religion, and Waterford is devout, or at least outwardly devout. But when you look at him, given how much of this society is built on these hierarchies and on this power, do you think his religious faith is genuine, or is this this kind of religion-centered society really just about these people on top maintaining power and status?
That's a brilliant question. I think he's an ordinary man that's in an extraordinary role and an extraordinary sense of power. I think he fluctuates between being a true believer, but also being well aware and cognizant of the sacrifices and the human fallout and the pain that's inflicted by his actions and the actions of Gilead. And I think he's a man caught in a moral complex. And that situation is great to be in as an actor. I think he sings from the party line. I think he has true beliefs on sort of redressing the moral compass, and yet he will deviate from that himself. There's the sort of hypocrisy of people in power and men in high echelons of power who are hugely hypocritical. And I love that we see that fallibility within Fred, people that have regimes and feel that they can quietly go off and use technology or smoke and drink when they've told the devout others that this is something that is despicable and for degenerates, and yet they end up doing it themselves. So I think he is at times a believer, but I think what makes him human, and I'm not looking for sympathy, but I am looking to make him real, because our show is, in many ways, it throws a mirror up to the reality of our society. So I'm looking to kind of, in one way or shape or form, at least make him real by allowing him to be cognizant of the effects that the regime has and he has on others, albeit fleetingly, but at least cognizant.
The show made history last fall at the Emmys. It was extremely well received. It won 8 awards, including Best Drama Series. It's the first streaming show that ever did that. And as it was winning awards on that evening, Reed Morano won, Bruce Miller, Elizabeth Moss, and Dowd. When it got to that final category, did it start to feel more and more like this is going to happen, the show is going to win?
It's all new for me, so I would never get complacent. I knew that when I signed up, partly why I signed up was to be amongst extraordinary talented people. Reed, Lizzie, Margaret Atwood, Bruce, the writers, my fellow actors. So it's wonderful that they've been recognized at their gifts. But I'm never complacent about that. It's always wildly exciting and a wonderful payoff to several months of hard graft up in Canada in sub-zero temperatures.
And then the show received earlier this year a nomination for its ensemble cast at the SAG Awards, including yourself, of course. And you previously won a SAG Award with the cast of Shakespeare in Love. Is it a different feeling being recognized specifically as a cast of actors by your fellow actors in the industry?
It's deeply satisfying to be recognized by your fellow peers. I can't describe that feeling. It's very special, and just to be nominated or up with other extraordinary, talented companies is wonderful. I love the sense of company. I come from theatre. It's all about company for me. It's all about team and interaction. That's kind of, I come from a big family. The family dynamic of the company is what I cherish most. And so to be in a category where you might be recognized for that is deeply satisfying.
Now, as we're recording this, I've seen the first 6 episodes of season 2, so I don't know where it's all going. You know
more than me, then. I haven't seen anything.
Well, provided whatever happens this season, I don't know, but like if your character is still around at the end of season 2, no matter what's going on in those later episodes, like going into season 3, what would you most like to explore about Waterford if you had that opportunity?
Well, season 2 opened up a little bit the world of Gilead and the machinations for commanders, and the sense of sort of hierarchy and the sort of like a pool of piranhas. They're all kind of looking for that promotion and that need to survive. And I love that, because I think that has huge implications of bringing work back into the household and how it affects everybody. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I'd like to see the reach of Gilead in season 3. Season 2 ends on such a big, massive note that the ramifications of which can only deliver a kind of a completely different U-turn for season 3. So it's all to play for. But I would love to see the expansiveness of the Gilead world in season 3.
Well, I want to congratulate you on the show and on the Emmy nominations and the Emmy wins for the show, and hopefully, knock on wood, more Emmy nominations and wins for season 2. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for your questions. Great questions. Thank you so much. Real joy. Thanks a lot.